A tough loss for the Pacers in Milwaukee. Another big run sinks them. Another fourth quarter toughie sinks them, and they waste TJ McConnell's insane career game. We'll talk about Pacers, Bucks, McConnell's night, and Andrew Nembhard's job right now as the starting point guard, all on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, diving in to the Pacers matinee against the Milwaukee Bucks. Tough loss for the Pacers, who once again, fourth quarter lead, right? They had that against Atlanta without Halliburton and lost it. And again today against the Bucks, where the Bucks smoked the Pacers down the stretch. But to me, that's not all of the story of this game. We'll get to everything that happened in Milwaukee. TJ McConnell's crazy game, the run that the Bucks sealed the deal on, all sorts of crazy shooting from all sorts of players and more. And then at the end, we're going to talk about Andrew Nembhard and his role right now as the starting point guard. What I think he can do a little better to be twice as impactful as he is right now. Now that he's been bad, but there is one key thing he needs to improve. We start, though, heading into, as Milwaukee has coined it, Cream City, which is on their jerseys now, or at least it was in past seasons, where the Bucks beat the Pacers 132-119. And that does a terrible job telling you how the Pacers played, because from late in the first quarter till early in the fourth quarter, the Pacers looked great, up 10 for a lot of the time, scoring with ease, getting contributions from essentially everybody at times, hitting lots of threes, generating good shots. And while the Bucks were playing well, they kept them at arm's length. And then in the fourth quarter, the Bucks outscored the Pacers 39-21 to run away with this game, right? If you just flip through the play-by-play of the fourth quarter, you can figure out how quickly this one got out of hand, right? Pacers were up 107-105 on the Bucks with 7:41 to go. And then they were down by 10 in a flash. I couldn't find the exact moment they went down by 10, but over a 7-minute stretch, the Bucks just kicked their butt to end this game. And that's been a problem for the Pacers recently. That's where I would start by talking about this game, is another bad run, and a very familiar one to the Pacers' recent losses, right? I diagrammed this on Twitter, but to me, this was something that really plagued the Pacers last season, and this has been a problem for them since Halliburton's injury, and it could just coincide with Halliburton's injury, but in the last three games, right? They lose by 2 to the Hawks, 14-0 run in the third quarter, completely kills them. They were up 99-90 in that game, and the Hawks came back to win, right? That killed them. A big run in the third and truly in the fourth as well, killed them. The Memphis Grizzlies, an 18-point loss defined by a 29-9 second quarter stretch from Memphis. That's a 20-point swing and an 18-point loss, right? And then this game, a 13-point loss over the final, 7.5-ish minutes, 27-12 run by the Bucks. They win by 13. That's a 15-point difference. You get the idea. There have been times in the last couple games where either, for the Grizzlies, it was a lot of defensive issues, although some offensive, but either way, where they stagnate in a way that was reflective of last year. They didn't have that problem as much early in the season. It's not that other teams wouldn't go on crazy scoring stretches against the Pacers all season. It's that they could match it with, a well-timed play, an effective stop, something would prevent this run from getting worse and sinking the momentum or changing the game. Whereas right now, the Pacers cannot slow them down, right? I've been asking about them, but look, everybody knows how a run is stopped. You just play better. And so it feels weird to ask it in a different way. But, what do you do to stop a run? TJ McConnell says you lock it into a possession, or Carlisle says you can call a timeout. Like, you can do all those things, but at some point, you just have to play better, and that's harder without your guys. Even though Miles Turner was back in this game, by the way, he was awesome. His first half in this game was one of his best halves of the season. Second half, it was more so offense for him instead of the defense, but really good return from him. Either way, though, a bad run in the game, once again, sinks them in a game that they otherwise played pretty good, right? In their last three games, so they've played, I can't do 48 times 3 that fast, 144 minutes. Like, I would say off the top of my head, like 125, 130 of them have been pretty good, right? At or above the level of their opponent. But the other 14 minutes or so were so bad that they had no chance. And they lose all three. 4-game losing streak for the Pacers now. That is their longest losing streak of the season. Now 23-22 on the year. A lot of other stuff to cover from this game, though, and bad clutch play is one of them again, right? And I think that coincides with the Bucks run. The Bucks were on fire down the stretch themselves. They scored 39 in the fourth. Drew Holiday was tearing them up, and it felt like everybody, Bobby Portis, Jordan Nwora, all these guys were hitting threes in the fourth, and some of it is correlated, right? You're taking the ball out of the basket a lot. If you're the Pacers, you can't run as fast. You can't play your identity, right? TJ McConnell's hotness wore off. They couldn't get enough from all their other scorers. Like, yeah, the balance goes away from your favor, but they were really rough in the clutch. Justin Dopirak and the Indy Star wrote about that being something they're missing without Haliburton, a closer, right? Their ascent recently, right? They were under 500, 15 and 16 when they lost to the Knicks, and then Haliburton has been amazing in the clutch ever since. The Pacers have been awesome down the stretch of games ever since. They don't have that anymore. They don't have that margin for error, and that's been a big part of their losses. That was once again the case today, and their inconsistent offensive impact that we talked about in their big run was another factor today. A lot of stuff that they lost with, we talked about it yesterday, right? All symptoms of missing your guy, your number one, your alpha. With Haliburton, do they win this game? I don't know. Giannis didn't play. They would have had the best player on the court had Haliburton played. Instead, that honor went to Drew Holiday, who was really, really awesome. So, yes, I think he would have mattered significantly, and a lot of their problems would be solved if he was playing. That said, there were some differences between this game and the Pacers weekend games. First and foremost, the shooting from Milwaukee and their defensive force, that was a different level than the Pacers had dealt with against Atlanta and Memphis. Those two teams did okay shooting. Milwaukee's defensive force was pretty good. The Pacers matched it with decent offense, I thought. The Pacers shot well from deep, got to the rim and made some plays, right? But the force Milwaukee plays with, the size that they have at basically every position, is really tough to deal with at times. Pacers cough the ball up a lot, 15 turnovers in this game. And then the shooting, holy smokes. This game was unlike anything I've seen from the Pacers, maybe in my life, in terms of shooting in a Pacers game, I should say, not from the Pacers. The Pacers were on fire themselves. 47% from deep, 47.5%. They made 19, right? Their franchise record, I think, before early this season, they made 23 in Brooklyn. Their old franchise record was like 20 or 21, right? They were like right there on one of the best shooting nights they've ever had as a franchise. They got smoked from deep. The Bucks went 23 for 46. That was the most they've made in a single game this season. They hit half of them, even without Giannis to create them, even without Chris Middleton to shoot them. They were lights out. All five starters for the Bucks at 40% or better from deep. Like, they just could not miss. A lot of them were tougher, self-created ones. Like, some of them, yes, were Pacers defensive miscues and issues that you'd want to correct, but some of them were tough shots that the Bucks just made, and that made this game unlike anything the Pacers played this weekend. They could not handle the Bucks' pressure on defense and shooting for 48 minutes. They could handle it for about 40, it looked like. And finally, in the fourth, all that caught up to them. They fell apart on both ends, which is a huge shame because they played pretty well, probably the best they've played since Haliburton went down in the third quarter of that Knicks game. They played pretty well in the fourth quarter that night. So since about halftime of the Atlanta game, I would say that the first 40 minutes of this game were the best the Pacers have played, especially offensively, since Haliburton's injury. They looked pretty good. They at least had stuff to build on to give you confidence. Maybe they can beat some of these teams. Again, they've lost 4 games in a row, so that's a little optimistic to say, but they have a chance to beat some of these teams. But it is a shame that they dropped this one, right? They for example, they found some ball movement. They found some defensive momentum. They made some threes, right? That's stuff that they did not do against Memphis or Atlanta. 29 assists, that's big time. 19 made threes is obviously huge. And for stretches, at least, they were slowing down the Bucks. And the big stuff here, look, the Bucks were better, but Turner returned and was awesome. That's very relevant to the Pacers turning the ship around from this 4-game losing streak. Miles Turner back. The pun not intended. Miles Turner back in the lineup after missing games with a back injury. He was a game-time decision, played 36 minutes, seemed totally fine, at least from the eye test. 11 for 17, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 blocks, 30 points. Whew, he was really awesome in this game. At times, the Pacers' best offensive and defensive player for stretches of this game. Look, I had someone comment this on YouTube. The title of yesterday's podcast was, what the Pacers are missing in Tyrese Haliburton's absence. That's paraphrasing, but they said, no, this is what they've been missing in Miles Turner's absence, right? He's the guy who's been out for the stretch too. And that's a good point. Like, they looked better in this game than they did in their last 2 first stretches, and him being back is a factor. Not a perfect game for him. I think he lost some of his force in the second half, certainly, but he was really good. But the story, the man, the creator, the career game, the guy who's going to make me turn into a positive second segment after a 13-point loss, TJ McConnell, the backup point guard had one of the craziest performances compared to expectation, I would say, that I've seen in a long time. 29 points, 9 assists, 3 steals, jumping off the page with one of the best first halves I've seen from him offensively, rivaling his first half in Cleveland 2 seasons ago when he had 9 steals. He had the steals, points, assists, triple-double. Let's talk about TJ McConnell's night, what it meant for the Pacers, and if this is a thing that they could see again in future games. Before we do that, though, let me talk to you guys about Rocket Money. Say goodbye to last year's outdated, disorganized methods of managing your cash and say hello to Rocket Money, the better hack to your finances in 2023. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about, like a streaming service you bought just to watch one show on. I have 2 of those, actually. Or the free trial that you never even used. Rocket Money can quickly and easily identify things like that and other subscriptions for you so you can stop paying for the ones that you do not want. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, saving the average person up to $720 a year. Stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. That's rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. Check it out today. rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NBA to get the latest and greatest from around the league. Every single game, every single moment from Monday night's games. And I'm plugging that because I was on it with Matt Moore, talking about Monday's games and some stories and some trends around the league, including LeBron James, 48 against the Rockets. He was awesome. Matt and I talked about that. But I'm going to talk to you about TJ McConnell and the career game by a mile that he just had. This was like I'm chatty when there's people around me that, really follow the Pacers, and I have opinions about what's going on with someone else who can bounce ideas off of with me. At home games, I'm pretty chatty. When I watch Pacers games when they're on the road and I'm at home, I'm pretty quiet. I just take notes and watch and, eat or drink something or whatever. The TJ McConnell in the first half had me speaking out loud. And the last time I did that during a game was TJ Warren's 50-point bubble game. I was making what an OMG noises during the game in my living room by myself. That is what TJ McConnell did in this game, which sounds ridiculous for a 29-point game. That's in the NBA this season. That's nothing. But for TJ McConnell, it was everything. It was awesome. I mean, I don't even know what to say about what he did. It was far and away the best offensive game of his career. It's a shame it didn't come in a W. So why am I talking like this? What is this? So 29 points, that's McConnell's career high. Prior to that, it was 23. But let's scrap the 29 because he had 25 at halftime. Halfway through the game, TJ McConnell had already eclipsed his career high in scoring. He was balling all over the Bucks. They had no answer for him. That 23-point game was actually with the Pacers in that really good year he had, also against the Bucks, by the way. The season with no fans. He kicked butt in that game with 23, if you recall. He started and played the entire game. I think it was the last game of the season or one of the last games of the season, and he was really good. 25 in the first half for TJ McConnell today. And that's not even what made me start reacting the way I was, because guys have big halves all the time. TJ McConnell had the 9-steal half. I mentioned that before the segment break in that game where he finished with 10 steals. Big moments happen. What made me actually saying words and blown away by what was happening is TJ McConnell hit 4 threes. TJ McConnell made 4 3-point shots. He made one. So early in the first quarter, or maybe late in the first quarter, or maybe it was early second quarter, Chris Duarte had the ball at the top of the key, and he kind of dribbled to the left elbow, and he had 2 defenders on him, one being his own man and one being a guy who was guarding TJ McConnell in the corner and said, oh, TJ McConnell's not a shooter, and ran off McConnell to stop Chris Duarte. And Chris Duarte passed it to TJ McConnell in the corner, and McConnell hit a 3. And that got 2 lines of notes on my game notes. 1, that Duarte made a good read out of a double team and made the pass, and 2, that McConnell actually made the 3. Right? That was 2 unusual sequences for the Pacers, given those guys' typical skill sets, right? Fantastic play. And then TJ McConnell hit another catch and shoot 3. I can't remember who passed him the second one. And then you're like, oh, wow. TJ, the second one actually was a buzzer beater. I do remember the second one now, Right before the end of the first quarter, he stole an inbounds pass and buried his second three of the game. Catch and shoot in that he caught a pass. It wasn't from his teammate. So he's 2 threes going into the third quarter. And then he starts scoring a bunch of other shots like inside the arc, and he hit one of his little trademarked fadeaways. And then he took a heat check. He took a heat check three, and I was cracking up in my mind before he let it go, and he drilled it. TJ McConnell nailed a heat check three for his third bank, and that was the point where everybody starts starting. He's I think that got him to 21 maybe or 22, and everyone was looking. If you're in my seat, or some fans even probably do this, when a guy's having an abnormal half, I immediately go to Basketball Reference and I'm like, okay, what's his career high in this stat, or what's his career high in points, and I go, wow, he's already close to that number, and it's the first half. And then not even 2 minutes later, TJ McConnell took another heat check three. Not as open as the first one. And he hit it again. He drilled 2 heat check threes. He hit 4 first half threes. His career high in threes before this game was 3. He hit 4 in the first half. The first half of Bucks Pacers was the best game of TJ McConnell's career. And it was a half, right? He got to the rim. He tore apart the Bucks defense for 25. Let me remind you, 25 points at halftime. TJ McConnell was on pace for a 50-point game. I just have to reiterate that again. And the Bucks changed their scheme. All of a sudden, they're coming at him higher when he's coming around screens. And TJ McConnell is really good at getting past guys and being slithery and getting to the rim. So he kept doing that. He kept using that to his advantage to open passing lanes. I mean, it was crazy. The Bucks coaching staff was like going like hands on their head. They couldn't figure out what to do to change things, to slow this down. TJ McConnell absolutely ripped apart the Bucks in the first half of this game. And so what made this impressive, he was 9 for 9 at halftime, is he leveraged it into assists, right? He finished with 9 assists in this game beyond the 29 points. That 9 assists is one of the highest games he's had this entire season, right? He had the 11 assist game earlier in the year. I think he's had 2 double-doubles. He had 11 against Memphis like last week, but he had the 10 assist game in Sacramento, I remember, because Halliburton was off. And he had 10 assists against Orlando, 9 today for his third highest number of the season, right? That was huge. He leveraged the shot into other stuff, and again, made the Bucks defend him differently, which opened up threes for other guys, right? Something the Pacers have needed is someone who can set them up in that kind of way. Coming up higher at him on screens, he just became a nasty passer, right? Hitting guys in the corner for big corner threes, hitting guys on the dives to the basket, finding guys inside. Like, Rick Carlisle could not take him off the floor. That was the other jarring part of all this too, is for a Pacers team that has been, tinkering with their rotation. TJ McConnell played the entire second quarter. TJ McConnell in the second quarter, I haven't even looked up his quarter stats. This is the second quarter of this game. TJ McConnell had 15 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 0 turnovers, and went 6 for 6 from the field and 2 for 2 from deep. Absolutely ridiculous TJ McConnell game. In the second half, he had 4 points, 3 assists, and a steal. Did not get the shot to go as much, but it was unbelievable. It was a game that actually made me say words out loud in a way that I usually don't watching the Pacers at home or when they're on the road. When I'm at home, that was the best he's ever played. Offensively, I should say. He's had some nasty steal games or some nasty pest games. He was really consistently good. The Bjork near at the fadeaway in the lane and stealing inbounds passes. Like, he's had some very impactful games, but this was the best offensive game he's ever had. Even with a significantly smaller second half impact, it was still far and away the best career game he's ever had. He still found ways to bend the Bucks defense in the second half and make things hum and things go well. And for a team, a Pacers team that is desperately looking for guys to step up every game now without Halliburton, they had him and Turner doing it. But Turner has had bigger games like this before. Even with Halliburton out, he was good in Portland, if you'll remember. That was the only other game this season that Turner has played and Halliburton hasn't. Before this one was in Portland, and Turner, I think, had a double-double in that game. But McConnell stepped up in a huge way in this game, and the Pacers desperately needed it. Completely crazy. I super enjoyed it. He's been pretty good quietly in general since Halliburton's injury, by the way. Like, this game obviously is going to stand out and make his stats inflated. But, in New York, 14-8-7, 13-7-7 against Atlanta, and 13-8-11 against Memphis. Like, pretty quietly playing very well when the Pacers need him to recently, which has kept them in some games and made their second unit better in a way that they really need with Tyrese Halliburton out. And this game, again, is going to inflate his stats. 29 points is a career night. 4 made threes is nuts. But very good TJ McConnell game. Much needed successor for success for this Pacers second unit. And he's not going to have 29. maybe ever again in his career. I was kind of hoping he'd get 30 just for his first 30-point game, but like he's quietly like snuck his 3-point percentage up to like a respectable league average number this season. He's shooting like 90% from the foul line. TJ McConnell's still not a guy you think should shoot all the time, but he's doing some stuff that makes you at least think about how he's got to be defended. He changed the way the Bucks guarded him in this game, and had the Pacers won, he'd have been the story of a huge win. Let's talk about the other Pacers point guard. I wanted this to be a perfect segue. Andrew Nembhard, who has done some things well, I think, filling in as a starter in a huge role, but is finally seeing how hard it can be sometimes to be the number one decision maker for a starting lineup for an NBA team, not putting the ball in the basket very well right now. Let's dive into Andrew Nembhard's play these last couple of games as the Pacers starting point guard. Before we do that, though, let me talk to you guys about BetOnline.net, your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball. They've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, guess what? You can get those on BetOnline as well. They have already got lines up for the second round of the NFL playoffs. Chiefs favored by 8.5 over the Jags, Eagles by 7.5 over the Giants, Bills by 5 over the Bengals, and 49ers by 3.5 over the Cowboys. That Cowboys game earlier today against the Bucks was gross. It's always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info at betonline.net. Head to that website today or use your mobile device for more, because BetOnline is where the game starts. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, easy peasy, hop on over to Locked On Bucks. Hear what Kane Pittman has to say about Bucks Pacers in his lovely Australian accent. He's been killing it covering that Bucks team, even including their title run 2 seasons ago. Let's talk a little bit about Andrew Nembhard, who I think deserves some talk for the way he has had to significantly change roles with Halbernaut. He has been the guy who's had the most change for him. He went from being a 3 whose job it was to guard really good ball handlers on the other team and be a pest and sometimes score, but mostly do that and shoot, to a guy who's like bringing the ball up and calling the plays and initiating offense and trying to dribble into the lane when plays stall and all this stuff. And on top of that, not only is he having to be that guiding force, that connecting piece, he's doing it for a lineup that hasn't played together much, right? Hield and Mathurin have not played that many minutes together. They've been cycling through centers because of injuries like this. Nesmith and Duarte switch spots in the starting lineup. Like, this has been a lot for a rookie point guard to handle. And it just so happens to coincide with about the time that rookie walls start to happen. If you think about, a good player's college basketball team, Andrew Nembhard played on Gonzaga. They always had longer seasons, as many Pacers players did, Mathurin, Duarte, right? They play a 30-something game college season and then their conference tournament and the NCAA tournament. And they do it over a longer time. There's more time between games. But that's about 40 games, right? This is the point of the NBA season where they've played 40 games in 3 months, and rookies start to go, oh my God, this is crazy. Like Miles Turner just talked about the rookie wall being something that the Pacers have to think about in the second half of their season. He was asked about what they need to improve in the second half. He said the rookie wall might be coming for these guys. And I'm not saying the rookie wall is hitting Nembhard, but this is the time it comes, and this is the time it comes typically, and it's coinciding with him having a big role change. So talking about his play, like what really impressed me, I've typed this a lot in my notes since he started playing point guard, is his passing in traffic. I talked about this a lot during summer league play for him as a skill that really stood out. Like when he's inside like 15 feet and there's a lot of bodies around, there's a lot of taller people than him, somehow he's still really good at, like scooping it to a teammate on his side or kind of wrapping a pass to someone or kicking it out to the right guy. He's really good at passing in traffic. He doesn't get rushed. He doesn't turn it over that much in those situations, right? 1 turnover against the Knicks, 1 against Atlanta, 2 against Memphis, right? Even with some struggles in these games, this was his first bad turnover game against the Bucks. He had 4. Like in general, he's done a pretty good job passing in traffic and making plays like that. But what he hasn't done well, what he needs to honestly do more, like McConnell, ironic timing, right? Saying he needs to be more like McConnell in this way, is shoot a little less. Take a few less shots on his drives, right? TJ McConnell takes like 5.5, 6 shots a game. Obviously, he just had the game of his life. He's going to shoot more against the Bucks. And Nembhard's been toning it down. He took 9 today. He took 9 against Memphis. He took 16 against Atlanta. That was too many. But he needs to find the right balance of shot volume, because he has really good percentages this season. I don't want to sugarcoat that at all, right? 45% from the field, 39% from deep. Those are awesome numbers. They are also buoyed quite a bit by playing as an off-ball player alongside Tyrese Haliburton. I think that's obvious in these last couple of games, right? 2 for 16, 2 for 9, and then today 3 for 9 in the 3 games that Haliburton's been totally out. But looking at the numbers diving in, and you go, oh wow, this is something that stood out to me, right? So they have played 714 minutes together. Andrew Nembhard and Tyrese Haliburton have this season. In those 714 minutes, Andrew Nembhard's 2-point field goal percentage when he shares the court with Tyrese Haliburton is 57.65%, 57.7%. Really good. When Andrew Nembhard plays without Tyrese Haliburton, his 2-point field goal percentage is 40.3%. That's 17% lower, right? He can cut more. He can slip behind defenders who are paying attention to someone else. He gets buckets in transition, right? A lot of his easier 2-point shots or a lot of his easier finishing around the rim kind of plays come with Tyrese Haliburton, helping to make that stuff easier. From 3-point range, he is at 38.96% when he plays with Tyrese Haliburton and 37.93% without him. So he is about the same level of shooter either way. But shooting is not something he has not been a guy this year, credit to him, who has just ripped off the dribble threes this year. A lot of, even now, his threes are in rhythm, catch, shoot shots, right? From Mathurin, from somebody else creating the shot. 1 for 6 from deep in this game. So I think those numbers will drop. These stats are from before the game they just played. And he is now 4 for like 20 on threes since Haliburton went down. Either way, the 2-point percentage specifically, but both numbers go down. He gets easier shots and makes easier shots. Credit to him for making them when he plays with the Pacers star point guard. And I talked about this with Hield, right? Buddy Hield, I thought, would be a big loser of Haliburton's injury. He's going to play. He's going to have tougher shots. He's not going to have the guy that understands him the best and sets him up really well for all these threes to help him make their shots easier. And Hield was pretty good in this Bucks game at hitting some big shots. He had 5 threes and 18 points. But Nembhard is another one that this has happened to. And so all this to say, his self-created twos have not been particularly awesome this season, right? And there are a lot of numbers you can dive into to talk about this from. But his effective field goal percentage on catch and shoot shots, 55.7%. That's pretty good. On pull-ups, 46.1%. That's not very good, right? Now, it's easy to see where he's better in that way. When Andrew Nembhard shoots off of 0 dribbles, he's shooting 59%. He's shooting 66% off 1 dribble. And then after that, it starts to dip. 45% on 2 dribbles, under 40% on 7+ dribbles, right? From 3 to 6, it's about 52. Like, there is a median for him, and it's less dribbling, right? And he can't dribble less. He's the point guard. These are just numbers to contextualize his situation. When he takes open shots, he drills them, right? 59% on wide open shots. 62% on wide open shots, about 50% on open shots, right? When he gets open looks, he takes them, but he doesn't get as many open looks without Tyrese Haliburton. Like, I could go through these numbers forever. When he touches the ball for less than 2 seconds before his shot, almost 60% effective field goal percentage. 2 to 6 seconds, it's 50%. 6+ seconds, it's 45%. He is clearly, by these numbers, a guy who benefits from getting the ball passed to him in an advantageous spot. He's really good at finishing already created advantages. He's not as good at creating the advantages for himself so much. And so this is a lot of background dorkery stat stuff to say that he is not a self-creator, but he's still trying to be at times, I feel like, when he's out there. And that is something he needs to change. And that is the biggest thing he needs to change, because Andrew Nembhard is still a good defender. That's been his best, one of, if not his number one best qualities all season as a rookie. He's a good defender right now. He's also a good shooter in catch and shoot situations. He's great at passing in traffic. He's been a very fine point guard for the Pacers, even in this stretch. But the shots he looks for, I think he needs to tone that down. Either shoot less self-created shots or try to make his emphasis to be scoring when he's playing with TJ McConnell, which they have to do in their current rotation. But he's not getting those great passes from like the Hield Mathurin types unless they're drawing doubles like Duarte did to the McConnell pass. Like, he's going to have either McConnell create those for him, or he's going to have to really kind of dial into his shot selection and make sure that it all makes sense. Because I think he's taking a few too many self-created shots. He took fewer of them in this Milwaukee game, to his credit. And again, he's still doing a fine job playing point guard. But this is the thing I think could really level up his impact and his efficiency if he just cleans up his shot selection a tiny bit. It's really hard. It's really hard. It's not easy to be thrust into a totally new role and still have decent driving lanes and try to do as much of the Tyrese Haliburton stuff as you can. You can't just say, don't shoot. It's not possible. Like, there's confidence involved. There's a human element involved. They still have to try their hardest to win these games. But some of his drives especially when he's trying to score, don't get all the way to the rim. And those just kind of can't end in shots. They have to be reset more. They have to be better created so he's got an advantage when he catches. And that hasn't been the case quite yet. So I think he's a little overcast as a self-creator in his current role, even though he's done very well as a creator for others and very well defensively. And finding that balance for him will be key, right? What is the right level of aggression for him to hunt his shot versus pass? He will figure it out. He's really smart. He's a very good player already and a very good point guard, but currently on a small 3-game sample and a 4-game losing streak, I think he's got to dial it back a tiny bit on the self-creation opportunities to level up his game a tiny bit more. We'll see what happens in their next game. Pacers Thunder on Wednesday in OKC. Rylan Stiles will join us tomorrow from Locked On Thunder to talk about that game and team building as usual, and we'll squeeze in other topics as appropriate in that show. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you had a wonderful day. We will see you tomorrow.